Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Beverly Hills View. Our guest today is artist Connor Tingley, who was born and raised in Los Angeles, graduated from Simi Valley High, then attended Art Center College of Design. He dropped out of Art Center to design album covers, toys, and to work with creatives like Kid Ink and Kanye West's group. He's worked with photographers who are really great, like Francois Nars and Michelle Comp, and he's collaborated with a great hairstylist who's a legend in the world of journalism and commercials, etc., Peter Savick. I worked with Peter when I was at Interview, so I know how great he is. Connor's first important solo exhibit was in Bucharest, but let's go back to the beginning because he's been painting since he was 3 years old. And why did this all happen? Was the family involved in art, or why were you painting at 3 years old?
Yeah, I had my lineage is sort of based in art for sure. My great-grandfather was designed tapestries, and even though we're of Armenian descent, he was really focused on specifically Oriental rugs. And then my grandfather wasn't a professional, an artist by profession, but he loved watercolor. So he's been doing watercolor his whole life.
So did you kind of grow up with watercolors around you all the time? Did you use your grandfather's watercolors?
I always saw the art supplies laying around, but at that time I was making work myself.
You were doing your own?
Yeah.
But it was a big influence, right?
Yeah, you know, by the time that they kind of knew that I was doing art and an artist, and then I had an interest in it, my grandfather actually picked it up again and wanted to do it.
But you talked
more.
about tapestries and rugs. Armenians were I'm Armenian too, full Armenian. You're part Armenian, right?
Yeah.
But the Armenians were very well known in the area, in the mountain area, for making carpets.
Of course.
Yeah. So did you have carpets in the house?
Yeah.
Did you? Yeah,
Many.
we have a lot too.
Many.
So, and did he sell them or did he just design them?
He designed them. I think a lot of them were based off of independent commissions and whatnot, but generally, you know, I think in his free time he would do designs as well.
And the great thing is, he has a piece at the Metropolitan Museum.
Yeah, he does. He does. Mr. J.P. Morgan donated that work to the
Oh, is that
Metropolitan
right?
Museum.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
So that was your mother's side, right?
Correct.
And was your mom helpful in guiding you in this art
Very much
world?
so. Very much so. I definitely owe her that.
So why did you start at such a young age? Was she pushing you?
No.
Were the things there? Because it's pretty interesting to say that a 3-year-old is actually painting because you were actually doing work.
Right. Yeah, you know, what happened was my parents came home and I had some drawings that I had done. They must have left me with a babysitter or something, but I was 3 years old, and I think that they knew that there was a natural inclination for it.
They could see what it was.
Exactly.
Do you have any of those pieces?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, that's so great.
I keep them in my wallet.
Really?
No. You know,
but were they big? Were they?
They were, you know, they were on whatever paper was laying around, I suppose.
Did they put them on the refrigerator with magnets?
Probably, I'm guessing. But you know, from there it was a steady incline, and it was, hey, let's foster this in some way.
Well, that's interesting because the way you fostered it was with a mentor, and I guess his name was Sheldon Bornstein.
Yeah, that's right.
And how did that happen, and why did you go to someone like that?
Good. Yeah. So you know, there was actually a couple of mentors before that didn't work out, and I had a previous interest in architecture, and I still love architecture. I really wanted to be a landscape architect, and I think there's something that I find fascinating is that I felt like each step of the way I always had this idea of what I wanted to do.
You're right.
My dad, when we would drive around, he would always say, point at a house and go, "Look at that, you know, isn't that well done?" Or, "I don't think that's too well done." So he had his own idea of editing the world around him, and
Was it just in architecture? Was it landscape? Was it
It was
everything?
It was primarily in architecture, and it was very general. It was, oh, I like that, or isn't this cool, or doesn't that look great?
I know.
And when my and when I liked the idea of approaching architecture, so I would do little drawings of houses, and I would take notes about what I liked and what I didn't like, and because my mother was a personal trainer, she had some clients that were architects, and they would let me come to the firm and draw and hang out. And I kind of realized that I didn't want to do that because from even really young, I realized that there were limits to architecture, and there was an extreme lack of freedom, you know.
But architecture could be is a part actually of your overall view as an artist, right?
Yeah,
you
no, I love
incorporated
architecture.
a lot.
Yeah.
So.
But so what happened was
with
so,
Sheldon.
Right. So I ended up seeing a Pixar film shortly after. People always ask me what exactly that one was. I don't remember, but I know that I binge watched every single Pixar film that I could because I wanted to get as much out of that. And it was because I wanted to create the characters that people fell in love with.
So is that why you went to Art Center?
That's why I was trained to go to Art Center. So
because that's more of a commercial animation kind of background, right? Schooling.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we met Sheldon, by coincidence, and it all worked out after many different, looking around and trying to find things, and I was vetting them. I don't like it. I like it. I don't like it. And this all sounds so funny because I was so young, but I was very serious, and I still am, obviously. But
you're still young and you're still serious.
At 10 years old, my mom would walk me into places and say, "So how was it?" And I would say, "I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that." You know. And we found Sheldon, and it just very much so worked out. He said, "I want to work with you," and
he taught you. He taught you. You looked at Renaissance paintings. I mean, you were like in another world for a 10 or 11 or 12-year-old. How long were you working with him?
I worked with him for 7 years.
Oh, so you like really grew up with this art education?
Really grew up, yeah. It was public school and then schooling with him. And I sort of paid by my dedication. And he was very much so. His intent was to train me in the way that the old masters were. It started with light and form and chiaroscuro lighting styles, and there was just
how did he know
anatomy.
all of this?
Well, he was an amazing animator as well, and he's actually right now currently he is the authority on forensic art. So he's kept growing, but you know, him and I have connected after a period of time not talking because I was just working and I sort of forgot.
But it's so great because you had such a different kind of a background for being an artist rather than going to school and taking drawing lessons, painting lessons. So you had to figure it all out yourself.
Right.
So at Art Center, you were going to design. You were thinking of doing animation.
I was there for illustration because you know, and I felt like I had a good enough understanding of what I needed to do, especially, you know, harnessing your creativity is quite outside of school. But the moment that I went to school, you know, I was starting to refresh my mind of things I was learning when I was 13 and 14, and then by the time I was there for about a week and a half, I had this opportunity to go to Europe and do a tour with an artist that I had been working with since high school. And something in my gut just said, you got to go and don't do the schooling anymore. And I kind of, from there, just rerouted my idea of what I wanted to do.
But going to Europe at that point, you had already studied all that old master painting.
Yeah.
And so you knew what to look for, and it was a whole different thing probably.
Totally, yeah. I had never been to Europe before. We never did family vacations growing up in that way. Yeah, I had never left the country until I did myself.
That led to fashion exhibitions, working with what, fashion people as well.
Yeah, it all kind of moved into itself. You know, the action became the reaction, and the reaction became the action, and I was, you know, I was working with some people, and then met some other people, and met some other people, and at the, you know, the only common thread from all of these different things that I have done was probably my sketchbook. Just being in my sketchbook the whole time.
Painting. Were you painting in the studio, or were you just sketching?
I didn't have a studio at that time. I was it was my sketchbook and my laptop. But
is that right?
Yeah.
So you weren't making big paintings?
No, I was always in my sketchbook and my laptop. Yeah, and you know, I from growing up and, you know, working in illustration with my mentor, I was sort of against the idea of working on a laptop or doing any digital program like Photoshop or Illustrator.
But did you then use it?
I had to learn how to use it when I was working at a toy company designing toys. When I was 18, in between high school and college, I spent that summer just doing toy design. And I mean, I was stuck in the 80s. I was giving them illustrations.
Oh, and well, would they then put it in the computer?
No, they said you have to. So I called my friend, who I had a production company with at the time, and he said, "Yeah, why don't you come over? I think it's time. I'll teach you Illustrator."
So what kind of toys were they?
You know, everything from cars and tanks.
Just toys.
Yeah, you know, figurative toys. And it's interesting, the way that you design a toy, to digress, is they give you the bullet points of things that need to be achieved within that toy. So if it's a car, it needs a rocket launcher, some larger tires, and it needs, so you basically put all the bells and whistles on it. And then from there, you guys have meetings, and then you decide based off of the budget what to remove. So you start with everything maxed out.
You start with everything. And the color too and everything.
Oh,
do you do that? You did it all? Well,
yeah.
So that was part of the design when, and meeting people when you then went on to work for Vogue and Marie Claire and do designs for them.
I mean, those things happen so organically. You know,
but it wasn't designing clothes. It was doing illustrations for the magazines, right?
Well, of course, yeah. It ended up going in that direction. So this photographer, Michel Comte, he reached out to me, and we got together. He said, "Hey, I want to do a story. I'm doing a story right now. We're shooting at the Sheets Goldstein residence, and it's about." It's called Win in Los Angeles. It was actually a Luomo Vogue, I think it was 2015 Luomo Vogue. And it was a Los Angeles, people of influence in Los Angeles, and each photographer got to choose people that they thought were influential. And he chose me, and I went up there at the house, and I really didn't know what to expect. You know, Robert Rabensteiner, the stylist, just put a coat on me, and I was wearing some sandals that were 2 sizes too small for me at the time because I was just running out the door. And right in the driveway next to that Rolls Royce, just pulled out the camera and took 5 photos and said, "We're done."
And that was
I said, "What are you talking
But that
about?"
was Michel. Michel had.
Yeah. And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "That's the only way. That's perfect." He just
like that?
Goes, just like that, yeah.
So then you really, he's a great photographer, so you hit it
I don't know if it was the right decision for me, but it was the right decision for him, and that was his work, and it made sense.
So.
And then from there, he said, "Meet me at Milk Studios in a week. I want to talk to you about something else."
Oh.
So we met there, and he goes, I'm doing a story, a cover story for Vogue Russia, 2016, January 2016. Do you want to be in the story? I think it's perfect for you. I don't think he was really asking. He was kind of asking a rhetorical question. It's like, come.
And what were you in it? What did you do? Were you modeling?
I wasn't modeling. I am not a model. But at that day, I was in the story. I was doing a painting, and he was photographed. It was an art studio story, and we recreated a studio in Milk Studios, and he was shooting the development of a painting. And
that's great.
that was with it was me and Cuba Tornado Scott. She's amazing. Yeah.
So then because I'm getting to this thing that I thought was so great because it encompasses so many things that you do. You designed gloves for a story.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was for Vogue or Marie Claire or what it was
Right.
for.
So on that set that day.
And we have a picture of the gloves there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Those are recent. Those are very recent. That's a recent gloves that I did for Sarah Moon. It was a story that she was shooting.
So tell us a little bit about it. There's two hands.
Oh yeah. So that's it was very freestyle. You know, I said, I was working with Patty Wilson, who's just an amazing stylist and editor. She said, I have this story, and there's really nothing much to it. It's just a black and white story. There's amazing couture, and, you know, I really want you to do some gloves. So I said, okay. We did some gloves in the past.
Who's this?
I would say that's always somewhat of some self-portrait.
But is it somewhat of a self-portrait?
Yeah, they always end up being somewhat of a self-portrait.
And then on the bottom of the glove, oh, that's another set,
Yeah,
right?
those are studio images that I took for, you know, my own references. But
what are you holding in those?
Those are stamps that I collected in Vienna.
So tell me about that, because you had a big box of stamps that you collected, and then you used them collaged with the gloves.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't know really how to approach it, but I started to feel it out, and I was looking at my supplies, and that's kind of the way art works. Art is a group of metaphors, and you can abstract them, and that's the beauty of it. I mean, life in general already is an abstraction, so
you have everything around you.
Yeah.
And what else do you collect?
I'm really not too much into, you know, collecting or, you know, doing ready-mades right now, but I really saw the beauty in these stamps, and I knew that I was going to use them at one point. I bought them in Vienna. I said, I'm going to use these one day, and I ended up using them for the gloves. It was, they were actually stamps that were to and from college, back and forth between.
Oh, it was a certain collection
right.
from someone?
It was a collection from somebody, you know, between a college and it was, yeah, I think it was a discussion about college.
So it wasn't
art school.
that you weren't collecting actually to make a piece of art. You were just collecting because it was interesting.
Collecting because it was interesting, and then along the way, it gains traction and becomes relevant to something.
So that was interesting to me at the studio with the gloves. Do you do other pieces of things like that for magazines?
Yeah, I've worked with Francois Nars a couple of times on stories, and yeah.
So let's talk about Francois Nars, because Francois Nars is a great photographer, but
yeah,
cosmetics as well.
Totally. You know, he obviously started in cosmetics. Nars is a very prestigious cosmetic line. You know.
And you designed. I'm going to hold this because you designed the logo.
Yeah, it was a 360 deal. I mean, I made sure that if I was going to endeavor into this, I was going to be able to do the package design and obviously the colors, the logo, and to me it was very important to kind of do the whole process.
And this, you did everything. You did the
yeah, there's artwork on there as well, but they're sketching. So I didn't want to. I know that I'm always going to sketch in the same way. So I'm always going to be very akin to my own sketches, even, you know, at my older age, but I wanted to make sure that it was relevant to me.
And all of them have your sketches on them, and all of these have your name on them.
Right.
The design.
Yeah. You know, to approach something that's so in a way commercial is a very you know, interesting.
It's commercial. I'm just showing it. It's commercial, but it's so artistic, and it's so great that someone who maybe never looked at a piece of art picks up their makeup and they see these drawings on here.
Yeah, you know, it's all actually about all of the packaging. You know, everything was approached from the perspective of I'm working with makeup. So it was like very similar to the exhibition that we'll be talking about in a bit that I did in Vienna with the church. I was approaching a church, as here I'm approaching the idea of makeup. So
So when you approach it, do you have something in mind? Did you have this in mind when you were doing it?
What I had in mind was I knew I was going to be doing a collaboration, and then from that collaboration, I knew the sizes and that I needed to work. And then I took the idea of collaboration and put it behind a curtain. I didn't want to see it, so I could just work
and then you
as
worked
myself.
on that.
Yeah, and then from here, you know, I really wanted the idea of it for you to be able to see yourself in it, and then see these sort of tortured drawings. And
That's right.
I like the idea of someone being able to make a decision based off of how they are feeling.
Turn it around.
Do I want to see the
and
drawings there, or do I want to see
like that,
myself?
and then look at the other side, over here, to this camera. This camera over here.
Oh, this camera.
Yeah.
But
that's the idea.
yeah, that's the idea. So, but you know, look, I
That's
love
one
product.
thing,
I
yeah.
love product. I love design. When I'm painting, I'm thinking of design. When I'm designing, I'm thinking about paintings, you know? And design is very selfless, and
I know.
paintings are very selfish. So,
So you're there.
when I'm working on a painting, I like to think about being selfless, and when I'm designing, it's like this yin and yang thing, and it's like a battery. It produces something that's proper.
Right,
Yeah.
and it keeps you going, right?
Totally.
It's like
Yeah.
well, you talked about what you did at the church in Vienna, and we're going to take a break, but we're going to come back and look at that. So we'll be back with Connor Tingley, and we'll talk about these huge canvases that he did, and part of the body of work, and you'll see what he did in the church. Be right back.
Don't let E. coli mosh with your food. An estimated 3,000 Americans die from a foodborne illness each year. You can't see these microbes, but they might be there. So always separate raw meat from vegetables. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov.
You make me wear my bike helmet. Taught me never to run with scissors. And to follow the swimming rules.
You tell me to stay away from drugs.
To always buckle my seatbelt.
So why do you keep a loaded gun in your drawer?
How safe is that?
You asked them to follow some safety rules. Now they're asking you. In fact, they're counting on you. Never let your gun get into the wrong hands. Remember, always lock it up. Visit ncpc.org.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Beverly Hills View. Our guest is artist Connor Tingley, who lived in Beverly Hills not long ago and has a lot of collectors who live here. And we were talking about his trip to Vienna. So he's going to tell us about that. And Connor, you were in Vienna. You did a collaboration with one of the churches. Will you tell us about that?
Yeah, so my show was curated by a dear friend, Stefan Zeisler, and he is the creative director of the Kunsthistories Museum, also known as the Art History Museum in Vienna. Beautiful place, so well taken care of. And the exhibition, which is was done in St. Michael's Church, and it is the oldest church in Vienna.
That's a picture of it. Fabulous.
That's, yeah, it was 15 feet wide by 36 feet tall. And the installation was first shown on Ash Wednesday. And extends to Easter Sunday, which is in a couple of days, and that's when it will be taken down and put in a private collection.
And what, is it a painting?
It is. It is. It was done with aerosol and airbrush. I have a series. It actually began as a series.
Wow.
So that's the flesh. Think of it as a very close view of meat, muscle.
Of the muscle.
And the meat, yeah, and the flesh. So to compete with a space like that that's all it is you're competing. It's such a beautiful historical location.
And it's right at the altar, it looks like. Is it at
It
the
is,
altar?
yeah. It's what this is originally called is a Lenten veil. And they show the Lenten veil on Ash Wednesday, and that's what it usually stays up until Easter. That's the typical run of it. But this church is very open to the idea of art, and you know, I think that it just paired so well, and it was one of the most beautiful things
I was
done.
in the Netherlands not long ago, and it was also, the churches were having artists come in and do the Stations of the Cross, which was fabulous.
I think we talked
all
about
the
that.
churches had different artists working, some from here and some from Europe. Another exhibition that you did when we talked with Peter Savic, who's actually from Bucharest, I guess, and you did an exhibition there?
Yeah, well, you know, the exhibition that I did in Bucharest was based off of a curator named Adrian Buga, and he's the royal curator to Romania and I believe a couple of other countries. He saw the work through somebody and said, I really would like to do something here, and it was amazing.
What was it? What was in the show?
It was from my first series of work that it was called the Trinity series. It's actually a run-on series. A lot of charcoal, but really, really almost abstractions of daily life.
You said series. And do you paint in series? I mean, when you're going to paint a show, or you're going to just paint in the studio, do you pick something and then do a series of work? And
the only, to me, is the idea of the series of work is the savior to an artist, because it's sort of like, it helps one be a bit more organized, and it allows you to organize your ideas and then explore new frontiers without going too far
so
off
do you
the course.
say, I'm going to paint barn doors, or I'm going to do something, or is it more aesthetic or more in your mind? What?
It could be anything you'd like. I mean, that's a fine example. I really love the idea of barn doors.
I do
you know,
too.
and I love the idea of you know, the wood grain in the barn doors, and I'm going to do close-ups of those barn doors, and that's because I want to study the idea of, you know, wood grains, and you know how maybe people take wood and then repurpose it for themselves, even though it's for nature, and you know, just things like that.
It just opens up. It
Right.
just opens up whatever you plan to do. Your newest series is
It's the Nun series. It's
the
all
Nun
about
series,
religion and judgment, and it's about
judgment. That's what you said. Here, let's start with this.
Yeah, so that's one of the works right now. The series is developing, so everything is painted in negative color codes, and the series in its finality will be 20 works.
What is this person?
That's a monk.
And the first one was a monk?
Yes, the first one was a monk.
And what is the white drawing around the? Is it a photograph or is it a painting?
It's a painting, but they represent the soul.
The white lines.
The white gestures represent the soul.
And this?
Yeah, that's a Hindu boy.
There's color in that one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little color in this. These?
Yeah, those are a group of those are a group of Buddhist children, and they're on some stairs.
So all the white lines are the souls?
Yeah, and when they're in groups in public, I thought about the idea of all of their souls coming together, you know, almost as a, yeah, those are Los Nazarenos in Spain, which are actually coming up this weekend. They present themselves as the clan, but that's sort of the idea of the series, because everything is painted in negative color codes. It presents itself as what it is not. And it's funny, and what's interesting about this specific piece is that even in its inverse, it redefines itself. Yeah. That was the original work.
That's the name,
That's the
practically,
nun.
isn't it?
That's the nun.
What you call?
That's
It's
the
so
nun.
great the way you've like boxed her in, or she's boxed in, actually.
Right. You know, that white, when you see the painting when you see the painting in person, it's so crisp. It's the thing that is the most in focus. So it's very, in a way, difficult to look past that, to see the image that lies behind.
Oh, there's another one.
That's the Pope.
Oh, fabulous. So how many in this series so far?
20. There's going to be 20. Right now, there's 10. and then the rest are in development.
So how did you research the religions, or how did you pick the images in the first place?
Great question. Great question. So, I don't have the ability to travel and go get an image of the Pope. I don't have the ability to, of course I have the ability to travel and go,
right.
But in terms of a concept, it was all about me sitting behind my computer and choosing images.
Oh, that's
so I'm judging from a computer, right? So I'm pulling out, that's a good image for the Pope, and it's very, there's no plot holes to this series. Everything is working as an idea.
So then you pull the image.
Pull the image. I say, oh, these are beautiful image of you know, some Buddhist boys.
Do you reflect?
Yeah.
Do you then project it on a canvas, or do you paint it on the canvas?
Oh, I'm painting it on the canvas. Yeah.
So you.
Yeah, I'm using it basically just somewhat of as a reference image. And to be honest, it's not a. It is not a. It's not appropriating. They're not one-to-one. I mean, I'm going in and having fun and doing things with the face, and compositionally, if there's natural forms like clouds, I'm adding things. But I chose a lot of the images from the internet because that is where a lot of judgment is starting in today's world.
That's what I was going to ask you then. Why did judgment come into it?
Well, judgment, it was started. That's how it started, you know. Some people might think, hey, to me, the original question of whether or not life after death exists is based in, do you believe someone has a soul? So I really wanted to talk about the soul.
So you have the soul and you have everything.
And I wanted to talk about seeing the soul before you see the person.
And you're talking about an image on a screen. How big are these pieces? Because they're really huge.
The largest work is 17 feet. And the smallest work is 4 feet by 4 feet.
Yeah, they're big.
So everything in between.
And you have a huge studio in the valley where you paint. And the other thing that I think is so great is that in the studio, you have a skateboard ramp.
Yeah, love skateboarding. Grew up skateboarding.
So do you ride a special kind of a board?
No, just anything. Kind of. I mean, there's a specific deck size that I like. I don't know if it appeals. I mean, I don't know if it's going to hold any weight to your viewers, but I ride a 9.25 anti-hero.
but the thing that's so interesting is that so many artists are attached to skateboards, you know, like Keith Haring and Shepard Fairey and Jean-Michel Basquiat, all did designs on skateboards. Murakami.
Yeah.
Did you do that?
I haven't done that yet, but the thing is skateboarding is so influential to culture past the idea of skateboarding. It represents a lifestyle. There's a flow and a rhythm to skateboarding.
Yes.
It's a lot more accessible than surfing, and there's such a beauty to skateboarding that even if you are talented as a skateboarder, you have to go through the same process to become a good skateboarder as really anybody else. You have to fall and get back up, and there's a lot of synonymies between skateboarding and art and painting.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Is that why artists are involved? But the other thing that
I think they see the value in it.
The other thing is music.
Yeah.
There's a lot of music involved with skateboarding, or the skateboarding takes me to music.
Right.
Is music important in your work as well?
Yeah, music's really important. I mean, I have an extremely eclectic music taste. I mean, I can't even, I listen to one person one day and then another person the other day, but yeah.
Do you listen to music when you're painting?
I do. Led Zeppelin's my favorite band of all time,
so
I'm basically listening to anything, but on any given day, it's probably going to generally be Led Zeppelin.
But I thought it was so great in the studio for you to, and you were going to utilize your skateboard.
Yeah.
What do we call it?
It's actually a half pipe, but they're built into wall rides. So yeah, I'm doing a project right now about that.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so I have these paintings that are, they're oil paintings, which obviously take 4 to, I don't know, I mean, it could be 8 months, but it'll be, in this specific case, it'll be 4 to 20 days to fully dry. And I'm gonna render the paintings as well as I can in a couple of days. The paintings are 12 by 8 feet and each. And as the paintings are drying, I'm gonna have a professional skateboarding friend of mine. His name's Curran Caples, and we're gonna tow him in on a dirt bike, and he'll be shot up this wall, and there's a ramp that's connecting the ground to the wall, and he's gonna go up and just tear that paint apart. And it's gonna you're gonna see the rhythm of the skateboarding in that painting.
You'll feel it, won't you?
Right.
And so that's a great collaboration.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot more to that concept, but just to roughly touch on it, that's it. Yeah.
And before we go, I know you talked about your sketchbooks.
Yeah.
And you brought a sketchbook with you. And tell us a little bit about it. It's for Dover Street?
This is something I just released with Dover Street Market in Los Angeles, and it'll be in New York next week.
And they have one in London where it started.
Yeah, and they're online. I think they're online as well. But there were only 50 books I did, and what it is I went through all my sketchbooks for 5 years, and a lot of writing in there. I didn't even notice that I did. You know, really, it was a great experience. Very effortless putting it together. And then the cover was something that was photographed in Vienna, and it was a performance piece I did in a church.
So, does it tell all about art? The sketchbook, does it tell about you and your art?
Yeah, there's a lot in there that I was really fascinated by. I mean, I love I love art. I love the idea of what art can do for people. I love the idea of what art can do for self. And I mean, just from going from very young to being from being a kid and drawing into now still going and still endeavoring further into what the idea of art is, the more and more that I grow, I just realize it goes all back to one word, which is intent.
Intent?
Yeah. Art is the only thing that art is intent.
It's what you want to do.
It's intent. It's intention. It's all based on intention. So I think there's been a lot of people defining that and trying to define it, try to redefine it. You know, it's an intention thing.
But it's all about the artist then. It's all about you.
Art is extremely selfish. Yeah.
I think we'll close on that. I think we'll close. I think you gave us a lesson in art. I want to thank you all for watching the Beverly Hills View today. Thank you, Connor Tingley, for being with us.
Thank you, dear Joan.
And we'll see you next time on the
Adios.
on the Beverly Hills View.